Until Winds of Winter comes out, if/whenever that may be, we will continue to speculate on every possible theory on this Song of Ice and Fire. And one of the most intriguing theories out there is Bolt On. The short of it is that Roose Bolton is some sort of immortal vampire that wears the skin of his victims, giving him the ability to live forever. While this would be a theory that could almost be immediately tossed out, it really isn't that far of a stretch. After all, this is a series that features Skinchangers glamoring a league of religious assassins that swaps faces to make themselves look like someone else, and of course the possibility that just about every character is possibly secretly someone else. So there's a lot of evidence for this theory. Some descriptions of Roose Bolton and comments that are made about him. Just about each and every time we are told about Roose Bolton, the description is pale, emotionless, timeless, and not to mention his deep blue eyes. Roose has an unremarkable body, neither plump, thin, nor muscular. That's from Arya 9 in A Clash of Kings. He has pasty skin and a pallid chest, Arya 10. Which is soft and hairless. Roose is short and has strong fingers. He has a pale face, beardless and ordinary, with his only noticeable feature being his strange eyes, paler than stone and darker than milk. Jaime 5, A Storm Swords. Like two white moons, the color is sometimes called ghost gray. His eyes are even paler than that of his son, Ramsay. Roose is also described as loving to use leeches to purify his blood. He has no feelings, you see. Those leeches he loves so well sucked all the passion out of him years ago. He does not love, does not hate, he does not grieve. This is a game to him, mildly diverting. Some men hunt, some hawk, some tumble dice. Roose plays with men. You and me, these Freys, Lord Manderley, his plump new wife, even his bastard, we are but his playthings. That's Barbary Dustin to Theon Greyjoy in the Prince of Winterfell chapter in A Dance with Dragons. Even Old Nan. Frequent leeches are the secret to a long life. A man must purge himself of bad blood. That's not Old Nan, excuse me. That is Arya. That's when he's talking to Arya, who is pretending to be Nan. We're coming up to that, Arya 9 of A Clash of Kings. Some more evidence for, right? We know the faceless men of Braavos have demonstrated that it is possible to remove other people's faces and wear them as a disguise. The Dreadfort is actually pretty close to Braavos if you look at it on a map, so it is possible that over the years, the Boltons have at some point sailed there and learned the secret. Even if they've never traveled to Braavos, House Bolton has been flaying people for centuries. It's possible that they learned this sort of blood magic. Obviously, somehow the Faceless Men figured it out. Roose states that one of the only reasons he has not killed his son Ramsay is the taboo of kinslaying, which is kind of odd considering that Roose is, has when he conceives Ramsay, he hanged a miller and raped his wife beneath the swaying body and has broken sworn oaths by killing his liege lord. It seems pretty uncharacteristic of him to be worried about kinslaying. It seems more likely that there's some likelihood to the idea that Roose plans to take Ramsay's identity and skin eventually, as Ramsay shares Roose's distinctive blue eyes. Even if the being wearing Roose's skin is immortal, if the person needs to die, every so often to avoid suspicion, it's possible that Roose kills his trueborn son, Demeric Bolton, because Demeric did not share his eyes. Reek even seems to note that Roose does not seem to age. These past 40 was as yet unwrinkled, with scarce a line to tell the passage of time. There was an agelessness about him, a stillness. That's Reek. Nearly every mention of Roose Bolton mentions the pale coldness or even nature of his eyes, indicating that he might be an other. In fact, at one point, it's even stated that Roose Bolton's old, face was a pale gray mask. Old Nan tells Bran a story of a man who had a child with a woman in white, possibly an other. By her description, Old Nan's stories do have some sort of value to be coming true. People speculate that it could be Roose, a long-lived Roose. Right? We know that he leeches his we know that he leeches. Frequent leeches are the secret to a long life, consisting with his not seeming to age. He states, however, that he also expects his new wife, Fat Walder Frey, to be fertile and birth children. Ramsay will kill them all, of course. That's for the best. I will not live long enough to see new sons to manhood, and boy lords are the bane of any house. Roose is only in his 40s. Planning to take Ramsay's identity would explain him being so confident that Ramsay will kill any rival to his inheritance, and that Roose himself will not be long enough to see these children grow up. Some other things. We also have House Lothston, who are considered to be vampires or have titles/connections to beliefs that they are. Lady Danelle Lawson was said to have bathed in blood to stay young and beautiful. It would be, it could be jealousy from other women, or there could be some truth to it. We also know this is at least practiced in some sort of fashion by the warlocks in Qarth. And this is from Jon 4 of A Game of Thrones. This is Sam telling him how his dad has done some things to try to make him strong. It says a dozen maesters at arms came and went at Hornhill, trying to turn Samwell into the knight his father wanted. The boy was cursed and caned, slapped and starved. One man had him sleep in his chainmail to make him more martial. Another dressed him in his mother's clothing and paraded him through the bailey to shame him into valor. His father only grew more frightened, right? Until Lord Randall's disappointment turned to anger and then to loathing. One time, Sam confided, his voice dropping from a whisper, 2 men came to the castle, warlocks from Qarth, with white skin and blue lips. They slaughtered a bull auroch and made me bathe in the hot blood. It didn't make me brave as they promised. I got sick and wretched. Father was obviously not pleased. So while they may not be bathing in blood for, say, beauty, which is what some people think Danelle Lawson has done, they are bathing in blood for bravery. So it's not too far of a stretch to think that they may also believe that bathing in blood or using leeches or something along those lines of some sort of blood magic could be the secret to long life. So as we have discussed this theory before, I thought I would bring it up again.
Yeah.
We can kind of go back over it.
When you first brought it up years ago, I was like, I don't know. But the more I read about it, the more I believe it. It is just wild. One of the things I remember, I was doing a Clash of Kings read, and I found out that Bolton, when he first meets Arya, right, is talking about hunting wolves, and he's being leeched, and he's talking to Qyburn about it and the importance of it. He does it all the time. Leech Lord, right? I mean, this guy is a bloodsucker. Those things are actually sucking blood. And we have all of this stuff where we are, blood magic is in our face. Why wouldn't we believe that Roose Bolton knows how to use blood magic to preserve or to extend his life or whatever? And, we do have cases where, gosh, you could have this crossbreeding of look at the Reeds, House Reed, possibly resembling Children of the Forest. You know what I mean? Like it's there. So for this to be some ancient connection between someone at the wall, right? Finding a woman who is like an other, and them mating and having children, and Roose is the offspring of that and has just been living there at the Dreadfort. Something else. I'm for it. I am here for it, and I think it's interesting. The one that really, I think, sheds a lot, or really shows us this whole talk about who's going to take his place. And the fact that, yes, he may have other children. He may have killed his first child because it wasn't a good match or a good, someone who he could morph into or use their skin or whatever. I think that's interesting. How do you continue to live all of those lives? Well, and if everyone's just playthings for you, right? That's what Lady Dustin is kind of saying, is that everyone is just, if you're an immortal, these people they're here for a small amount of time. He's biding his time, and he's making sure that he can kind of move through life without being recognized, without being killed, and slowly grow into a seat of power. I love it. I love it.
Yeah. There's a lot to it. I've even been thinking more about the idea, well, could he be a child of another, right? The Night's King, right? Who theoretically marries another. There's actually some thoughts I've had about that recently. What's to say, we know that the White Walkers, the others, in some fashion, in dealing with Craster, for whatever reason, seem to not immediately go slaughter Craster, right? Because he's offering them children. So we don't know why Craster suddenly decided to start doing that, and why they're fine just taking a baby and just going. So that's got to provide some level of intelligence. I think a lot of times we just view them as these sort of zombies. So I don't think there's anything to say that a woman or something. Some people have theorized that Nisa is an other, or became an other, or something along those lines. I don't know if there's anything to say that what if the woman that you loved became an other, or became a White Walker? You have white, but then you have things that turn into White Walker. It seems like the babies will become White Walkers, Craster's babies, not others. So we don't know that correlation. We don't know what that difference is. And some of that's obviously from the show, where we see him touch the baby and the eyes turn blue, as opposed to just becoming a white. I think because it's taking something that's living as opposed to raising something that's dead. That might be sort of a difference. So we don't necessarily know the thing there. But diving back into the possibility that maybe he is a descendant of that, I do think it's possible. The White Walkers, we don't know yet in the books how they were created. The show kind of gives us one sort of explanation for it. We don't know yet if it's going to be the same way in the books. The White Walkers could have been there forever. There's the land of always winter. They could have just came out of there. So the possibility of them breeding or something like that is still on the table. Whether it's a loose theory or not. Then I start to look at some of these correlations and some of these connections maybe we could make here with Roose Bolton. It would be one thing if Gur were to just kind of describe him as a vampire, just because, okay, he lives in the Dreadfor and he can be leeches, to kind of just give us that idea. But there is literally an already sort of house that is described as like the vampire house in the Lostons. Their sigil is a bat. They flew out of Harrenhal. So why would you then have a second house, which is kind of the vampire house with sort of Roose Bolton? He's flaying people, so we already know there is Arya literally is engaging in that magic right now. Mm-hmm. The magic of wearing somebody's face. So if you can wear somebody's face to take on their identity, why not maybe you take their face, or you take their entire body? We have no idea how old Jaqen H'ghar is. We have no idea if that magic causes him to live forever. The warlocks, I imagine, are incredibly old. Melisandre is at least doing some sort of a glamour. She could be ancient for all we know, or maybe she's just like a 130-year-old woman. Right. I mean, she obviously moves around a lot better than somebody. Again, we don't know about that in the books yet, but in the show, I think it's probably pretty similar. Just from what we know of Ruby's, and she obviously glamours other people, that Melisandre is, somebody incredibly old. So We don't know. Does that glamour allow you to move around easier, right? If she's that old, I mean, by looking at what she looks like in the show, which I think is likely in the book, I mean, she looks like she's maybe as old as Maester Aemon, and it's not easy for him to get around when you're that age, but she can kind of walk around. I mean, pretty easily,
right.
pretty easily. So there's definitely something going on with a lot of this magic. So he's doing the leeches. We see Melisandre doing blood magic for leeches. We just talked about it in this past chapter. So there's a lot of magic going on. There's a lot of flaying going on. There's different kinds of magic. In fact, he could actually be blending something, blending something along the lines. What Euron is doing right now is some crazy magic, and things like that. So we see people their age being extended through magic. Look at Bloodraven, for example. He seems, we know how old he is, and I think he's being kind of held together by that weirwood tree. You have other creatures which have lived for centuries. Given the Children of the Forest, they've been around for an incredibly long time. So there's a lot to it, I think, and I think there's definitely some validity to it.
Yeah, no, 100%. It is it's the other situations where magic is being used are glaring to us, right? And so all the things that we're seeing from the warlocks, from Melisandre, like Ger's putting that in our face and saying magic is being used here. What are the common connections between all the different magic users or whatever? And it's blood magic. And then so subtly, very subtly, he puts Roose Bolton in front of us in the very beginning of this series, right in the first book, and tells us to be on guard. Our characters are on guard. He comes from a place called the Dreadfort. He's a sly guy, and we're to kind of keep an eye on him. And the Dreadfort, by the way, we could go into its history and all of the different kings and the fighting between the two houses and stuff. That's interesting. I mean, that to me is also like they are a big player in the North. Their proximity to Bravos, like you said, that's huge. It's not just that he did it once in a Game of Thrones and he said, okay, here is some stuff to watch out for Roose. He does it in a Clash of Kings. He does it in a Storm, Dance. He keeps going. He keeps bringing Roose up and keeps making all these little tiny nods to blood magic, timeless, him being outside of time, him having only, one distinct, something that would be memorable to you. It's almost like he's a guy who would pass through a room and go unnoticed, but he's the guy you should be paying attention to. And in the series, he fits that as well. He is kind of rolling through the series and no one's really paying that much attention. Although he's gotten to the point where he has Winterfell and stuff, but it's very subtle and it's right in front. He just keeps kind of climbing up this ladder. And even if he's defeated, even if it looks like he's defeated, it very well may be that he's not. He's just switched bodies. He is now just Ramsay, or he's taken over in some other way. So I love it. I think it's something that George would do. And you just don't put that many references to a timeless being, someone who is, and you could say vampire. It doesn't even have to, that's kind of, we're just putting
it could
that
be just
term
skin
to
changing,
it.
right?
Yeah, he's immortal, or he's got extended life. He is a magic user. You could almost call him a warlock that has no warlock title. I mean, he's using magic in ways that are subtle and that are secret. So,
yeah, it's a great theory. I love exploring it, and we've done an entire full podcast just on it as well. But I just kind of wanted to dive back into it and get your guys' thoughts. Let us know. Well, dive into some of this stuff. We've done I know we did another segment. I believe it was with I think it was with Crowfood's daughter as well, where we were talking. I think we talked about Roose Bolton a little bit, and we talked or it was a Raven's Nest or something. At some point we were talking about Ramsay and Roose and how book Ramsay is pretty different than show Ramsay. Ramsay is smart and intelligent, and book Ramsay is not as smart, intelligent, and opportunistic as in fact in the books. Roose Bolton seems to be far more calculated and things like that. And so for him to just be killed like random, kind of by slighting his son seems something less likely.
Very
less
much
likely to happen. So guys, hey, leave us a comment. let us know.